In this video we are going to build this box with smaller boxes in it, with the numbers 1 to 6 inside the center of the boxes. Easy, right? Well, we will see. Before we do that though, I want to do this easier task with 2 boxes. Should be straightforward, or is it? And even before all that, I want to talk about CSS properties. So let's get started. Let's create a div with text in it. I'll copy and paste this. Next, I'll put some CSS. Create a grey background. And set a width to 280 pixels. And padding to 50px. Notice that puts padding all around it for 50px. I could have written it an alternative way like this. Notice the dash is used to make things more specific. This happens a lot in CSS. If we set a margin of 50 pixels, we get margin all around it in exactly the same way. And again, I could replace that with the following. And that gives you the same thing. I digress though. Let's get back to padding. Could have padding 0 50px. This sets 50 pixels on the left and right and 0 on the top and bottom. If I change this so it's 50 pixels and 0, now you get the padding on the top and bottom but no padding on left and right. If I set 25 pixels, 50 pixels and 75 pixels, the top padding is 25 pixels, the left and the right will be 50 pixels and the bottom will be 75 pixels. Margin works in the same way. CSS properties are difficult to remember. Don't be surprised if you have to keep having to Google them. The important thing is to remember is that specific parts of the group of properties can be accessed using a dash. You can put a number of related properties in line separated by a space with a semicolon at the end. Let's get back to creating these grey boxes then. I'll create a div and then another div with a section in between. Get rid of this styling. So now we got nothing. That's alright. It'll look better when we put the styling in. To get two grey rectangles, I need to set up a div. Width 100 pixels, height 200 pixels, and background color gin 50px auto to center it. Right, so that's gives me the two squares. Now I have a problem. I need to select the second div to put the inner rectangle on it. What I can do is put a class on the second div. Call this last div. Putting a class on a div means I can be more specific about what div I want to select. For a class, you start it with a dot. Last div, that tells it that it's a class. So now we've selected the last div, padding 50px on the last div, and oh dear, it's got bigger. Why is that? Intuitively, you expect the box to remain the same and the padding to allow me to center the inner dark grey box. This is not what happens by default in CSS. It is due to the property called box sizing. By default, box sizing is set to content box. That's what we got at the moment. Now, to make it do what I want, I've got to set it to border box. See? So now the two squares are the same size. So now I can create the inner box using the section selector. And there we are, we've got what we wanted. My reason for doing these two boxes was to show you the problem with box sizing set to content box. It's important. If you have a complex web page, trying to get it to look right can drive you mad, but if you set box sizing to border box, it helps a lot. Okay, let's minimize these. And let's talk about color. For colors in CSS, we often use hex values. But what are hex values? The hex numbering system counts from 0 to 15. But instead of going from 9 to 10, it goes from 9 to A. So it looks like the following. You have decimal numbers, as usual. But when you get to 10, A, 11, B, 12, C, and so on. If you want to represent 16 in hex, put a 1 in the left hand column and a 0 in the right hand column, like so, and then 17 is 1 1 and 18 is 12 and so on, up to 255, which is the same as hex FF. Each colour is given a red, green and blue value, like so, and we normally prefix the colour with a hash. This is a sort of a bluey colour. It is 43 red, DC green and D3 blue. And this sort of orangey colour, it's DC red, 8C green and 43 blue. So now I will do the grey box with the pink boxes inside. First of all, I'll delete what we all currently have. So now, create the HTML first of all. If you want to create more than one article, you can use the asterisk and then the number of you want, which is 3 in this case, and it gives you 3 articles. So that's the HTML. Now go to the style sheet. Looks like a list of numbers at the moment, but it will look better once we add the CSS. If you want to set a property everywhere, you could use a wildcard selector. We have to use an asterisk as the wildcard selector. I want to set box sizing everywhere, so I'm going to use the asterisk as a selector and set box sizing property to border box. Next I'm going to do the body tag. I'm going to put some padding at the top, 100px, to give a bit of space between the box and the top of the page, and set the font family. Next I will make the outer box a lighter light grey. And set the width to 1000px and the height to 650px. Set the padding to 50px to create a bit of padding between the sections and the div box. And margin 0 auto. So the top and bottom height will be 0, but the the margin will be automatically set so the box is in the center of the page, like so. So now I'll set the section width to 900 px and height to 250 px. The back ground color to a slightly darker grey. Right. So far so good. Let's do the pink boxes now. This isn't what we want. The problem is that the div sections and the articles are by default set with a property called display block. This means that the second box will appear on the next line down. What we want is our pink boxes to be adjacent to each other. We can change the display property to inline block. Like so. That's closer to what we want. Now, set the font size to 30px. Font weight to bold. Color to white. Use text align to center the text horizontally. Now to center the text vertically, I'm going to set padding top to 60 pixels. So you've got the height of the box is 150 pixels and the font size is 30 pixels. So you'll have 60 pixels at the top, which gives you just another 60 pixels at the bottom. Now I'm going to set margin right to 50 pixels. It didn't like margin right 50 pixels. The problem is we want margin right on the first two boxes, but not on the last box in the section. The 50 pixels on the last article is causing the last pink box to overflow onto the next line. What I could do is give the last article of the section a class called last article. And set some CSS for last article. Set the margin right to 0. So now both the top row of pink boxes and the bottom row of pink boxes both have a margin right of 50 pixels on the first two, but the last one is set to a margin right of 0. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe for more.